What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Ninth Doctor Christopher Ecclestone story, Aliens of London and World War III. This is the first two-part story in the new series, the first ever two-parter, and it's one that seems to have very mixed kind of views. Some people, I wouldn't say that really anyone I've heard of absolutely loves this story, but there seems to be people that either think this is a decent enough story, and then people that really don't like this story. Now, I've always been in the opinion of, and in the kind of the camp of, yeah, I think this is actually a decent story. However, have my views changed on it? Well, you'll get to see in this review. Anyway, let's get started as we always do with the cast. Okay, Christopher Ecclestone as the Ninth Doctor. Once again, really, really good in this episode. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to a point where I say that the Doctor isn't good, or, it might come at some point. I don't know if it's ever going to come for Christopher Ecclestone. He was just really, really good all throughout his entire run, and that is exactly the case here as well. Has some really funny moments, like, when they're about to trap themselves in the cabinet room, and he starts, going with the story of when, the history of the cabinet room, and, this whole building. And he's like, oh, there used to be a man named Mr. Chicken who lives here. Lovely man, Mr. Chicken. And he just goes on this whole rant, and it's just funny. And at the end, he's like, lesson over, and closes the door and, protects themselves. And then Rose is like, well, how? Because he's like, nothing can get in. And Rose is like, well, how are we going to get out? And he's just like, right. That's such a funny moment. And there are lots of funny moments here. Lots of serious moments as well. The whole thing with the pig, when he's, he finds the pig, and he knows that he can tell that it's not, evil, that it's not trying to go out and kill people. He knows that it was just, it was kind of put here kind of on purpose as somewhat of a distraction, I guess. But then when it actually gets shot, the seriousness in that scene is really good. And then there's more funny stuff, at the start where he gets slapped by Jackie. That's always hilarious as well. So all in all, as usual, great stuff from Christopher Ecclestone. Billie Piper as Rose Tyler, also very good in this one. Of course, a lot of the stuff at the start with her, how they've been gone for, ends up being 12 months when it was supposed to be only 12 hours. And, the emotion that she plays there with Jackie as well is very, very good. And the stuff with Mickey too. And then, she has a pretty good rapport with Penelope Wilton, who plays Harriet Jones, who I will just also say right now, also very, very good. Yeah, all in all, good from Rose. She doesn't have, apart from the stuff with kind of Jackie, she doesn't have the most to do in this story, I'm going to be honest. But for what she does, it's pretty good. I will also mention, of course, I might as well just mention it now since I just mentioned her before, Penelope Wilton as Harriet Jones. Very good. First appearance of Harriet Jones, and she would appear a few more times in the series, so very, very good here in her first appearance. Of course, Camille Coduri as Jackie Tyler, very good in this one as well. The first story where she's kind of been in a decent amount. She was in episode 1 Rose, but not a whole lot. Has much more of a role here, and I like that as well. And of course, Noel Clarke as Mickey Smith. Of course, plenty of stuff here as well. The whole Ricky thing with the Doctor is funny. There are some things of Mickey's character here that I'm not the biggest fan of, mainly towards the end of the episode, which we will talk about later. But all in all, yep, acting-wise and all that sort of stuff, Mickey's pretty good. Alright, so let's get on to some points for this two-parter. The Doctor drops Rose off 12 months after they left instead of 12 hours. So it starts with, the Doctor being like, yep, it's only been 12 hours. She's like, what? It's only been 12 hours? Yep, no worries. Go off, see your mum. She goes off and sees her mum. There's all these posters everywhere that the Doctor finds, because it turns out they've actually been gone for 12 months. And it's a whole thing. Rose won't tell Jackie, her mum, where she's been and what's going on. And it's a really interesting thing. And towards the end of the episode, once Jackie figures out and, is there when the TARDIS lands and goes inside the TARDIS, then, she's still absolutely baffled and she has no idea what is going on. And she even ends up, ringing up, because there's a whole thing of, if you've seen an alien, ring us up, and she does that for the Doctor, and that's an interesting thing. I feel like that doesn't really go anywhere though, does it? Because she rings up and then the Doctor ends up coming to Downing Street because that's a protocol of, well, from what I could tell, it was, you know, they have the Doctor kind of as a what's the word? As an alien expert, yeah, for Downing Street. Now, I know that it did end up being a whole thing of, well, it turns out the Slovene actually, got all these people together as a plan. But was that the initial thing? I don't really know. It was a little bit muddy with that whole thing there, but yeah. So I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. Of course, we've got a spaceship crashes in London. That whole scene is pretty crazy. You've got Rose going, I've seen all those things out there, and nobody on Earth knows what. Nobody on Earth believes any of it. Now, I do find that a little bit strange because do we not remember 3 episodes ago, we had mannequin dummies going around shooting people? So they have seen a bit of stuff on Earth. I mean, obviously, there's also a lot of stuff in the classic series that went on, but I mean, I can kind of understand them forgetting about that or whatever. But yeah, we literally 3 episodes ago, 12 months ago, had mannequins running around London. So what's that about? I don't really know. First mention of units, that's something I found interesting. This is the first time we hear about unit, and the Doctor actually brings up that he used to, well, he doesn't bring it up. Mickey brings up that you used to work for unit. I like that as a classic series, callback. Of course, the third Doctor used to work for unit. So I like that, first proper classic series kind of throwback that I've at least noticed rewatching these back. The Slovene are disguising as people of power in the UK. So we get onto the Slovene themselves. Now, I've always quite liked the Slovene. Yes, they are very much basic alien in appearance. My partner, who was watching this with me, even said that herself. She said, wow, they've made them green. That's so, so cliche or whatever. But yeah, I like the Slovene. I think they're a pretty cool design. I like them. I'm a little bit surprised that they never came back, to be honest. Now, I know that Slovene is the kind of family name. That's not actually the species name, but surely we could have other Raxacoricophalabatorians come back. I think I did that pretty well there. We could have another family or something like that. Surely we can bring the Slovene back. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't, to be honest. To get rid of the farting stuff and all that sort of thing, because it is a bit cringe, I will be honest. And we can still have the Slovene back. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't had them back, to be honest. And yeah, they're disguising themselves as people of power to take over, really. Although they have to all go into rather large humans, which is something that I don't think you'd get away with today, to be honest. But it is what it is. And I mean, it does make sense in what they are and everything. It makes sense. I think at this point we actually move now onto World War III because I'm going to be honest, Aliens of London was very much set up, but it was more set up than I remember. It was a very, very set-up heavy episode and not a whole lot actually happened. But we get onto the Doctor traps himself, Rose and Harriet in the cabinet room. I mentioned that whole scene before, but I really liked that. And of course, on the way up to the cabinet room, he also had that thing where the guards are all around him. He was like, if you're gonna execute someone, don't stop him by the lift. And he walks backwards and goes into the lift. I mean, they should have really just shot him. I don't know why. I mean, they literally had direction to shoot him and just didn't. And they had time to shoot him when he was talking and when he went back into the lift. So a little bit, silly there. But I did like the scene. And of course, like I mentioned before, the one with him when he traps himself in the room. And then a little bit later when he opens the door and, the Slovene start laughing at him, he just has a really serious face, but he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says to him, I'm going to stop you. But in his mind, he's like, I actually don't know what I'm going to do here. For that moment, you really don't know. And I mean, there's the moment as well where he's talking to Rose, he's like, I could save the world, but lose you. And in that moment, just the look on his face, he does not know what he's going to do here. He doesn't know how to get out of this one. And I think that's very strong. The Doctor working out where the Slovene are from. This may be possibly my favourite scene in the episode. It is really good. The music's ramping up. It's very exciting. That he's trying to work out where these creatures are from. And, everybody's going off, what they know about them. What they look like, what they do with the farting and all that sort of stuff. And I love, Harriet Jones's whole thing about when they fart, and excuse the word, but when they fart, but please excuse the word, I love that funny stuff, great. And when he figures out where they are from, and then the comedic line of, because of course they're talking to Mickey over the phone, Mickey just being like, when the doctor's like Raxocoricofallapatorius, and Mickey's like, yeah, well, let's send him a postcard. Lovely, amazing, quality comedy stuff that you just don't see in recent Doctor Who, although we've got Russell T Davies back now, so maybe we will. But yeah, really like all that sort of stuff. The Slitheen want to destroy the Earth to sell its pieces off. So they want to blow the world up and then sell its pieces off because they can use it as fuel or something, sell it for fuel. So it's literally a family business. I thought that was a decent enough premise. I mean, sure, whatever. It's fine. It's an all right enough premise. Now, here's one of my big issues and one of most people's big issues. Mickey can just launch a missile through a website. So this is one of the big issues for people, the fact that Mickey has all of a sudden become a hacker and can just do this sort of stuff now. At first, I was thinking watching this like, actually, I'm not really sure about this because the Doctor's kind of guiding Mickey through how to do this. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not that he's a hacker so much. The Doctor's telling him how to do this. But then later on, he does some other stuff with like the radar and stuff, and it just all gets a bit like, how is he managing to do this? And how is it so simple to be able to go onto this website, do all this stuff, and launch a missile from a website? It just doesn't make any sense. It's too convenient. Yeah, it's just... And then at the end, the doctor gives Mickey like the CD, being like, put this in your computer, wipe my name from all of the internet so nobody knows who I am. Can he do that? Is this something he can do? Was Mickey ever established as a hacker? Like, where has this come from? I really don't understand. Them surviving in the cabinet room is a bit convenient and a bit silly. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know if the whole cabinet room thing is real. I really don't know. But, whether it is, I'm sure it's somewhat fortified or whatever, but to that extent, I'm not so sure. Maybe it is, who knows? But, yeah, they literally get shot by a missile and they managed to survive in this thing. Never mind, they got, absolutely rumbled around all over the place, and all they were hiding under was a tiny little, like, wardrobe shelf. So, yeah, a little bit like, really? You got out of that without even a bruise or a slight concussion or anything? They just seem fine. They just waltz out like, we're all right. It seems a bit too convenient for my liking. And my final point on this episode was that the pacing is actually quite slow. Now, this is the first two-part story in the new series of Doctor Who, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know if it needed to be a two-parter. The build-up is rather slow. I like the cliffhanger, but it is resolved instantly with the Doctor just being able to take the tag off that's electrocuting him and shove it into one of the Slitheen, and then that apparently zaps all of them. So it's a good cliffhanger with a pretty poor, easy resolution. And then, yeah, the second episode is a bit better on pacing, but there's still a lot. Most of the episode, the Doctor is stuck in the cabinet with Rose and Harriet, and yeah, it's just not the most exciting. And the farting jokes, I used to mind the farting jokes when I was a kid. Of course, it's kids' humor. It was funny. Fart jokes were funny. Now, as a 25-year-old, how old am I? I'm not quite 25. 24-year-old at the moment. A couple of months away from 25. As a 24-year-old, it doesn't quite interest me as much. It's a bit more like, oh, I'm not as big of a fan of this. But I mean, it is somewhat for kids, so I can overlook that a bit. But just generally, I mean, every time the Slitheen go to unzip themselves, it's really kind of comedic, but also camp and a little bit, and yeah, it just didn't quite do it for me this time. So, Aliens in London and World War III. I'm gonna be honest, I've seen this quite a few times. I've seen this episode probably 6 or 7 times, and I always used to think it's a decent kind of 7 out of 10 story, pretty much the same as I've given most of, Unquiet Dead, Rose, I gave a 7. I think End of the World, I gave like a 6, but this one was always around that kind of 7, maybe even a 7.5. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like it as much this time. I thought the pacing was slow. I wasn't as big of a fan of the the farting and all those jokes. There were some good little jokes in there, mostly from the Doctor and Mickey, to be honest. And Harriet Jones was good enough as well. But all in all, I wasn't as big of a fan of this as I used to be. So I'm going to give Aliens of London and World War III a 6 out of 10. I think I probably still prefer it to The End of the World. I just find The End of the World a bit bland and a bit boring. This one, I think, is quite slow, but it has its exciting moments. Whether it needed to be a two-parter, I don't really know. It could have been a lot to fit into one part, but I think it does drag a little bit, and it just doesn't quite do it for me the way it used to. I still like the Slovene. I'd love to see them come back in some way, but and we have got one more Slovene story in this season, of course, later on. But yeah, just didn't quite interest me as much as this one has in the past, so it's got to be a 6 out of 10. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.